Yes, we're learning this beautiful Sikha from the Rebbe from 1991, Tuf Shin Nun Aleph, 5,751 years after the creation of the world, after the beginning of the creation of the world. And here the Rebbe is talking about Moshiach. He's talking about very, very explicit terms about what Moshiach is going to do and what we have to do in order to facilitate and to hasten his arrival. So the Rebbe explained that Mashiach is going to rid the world of all false egotism. And that's the whole idea of the Tzorat, the Metzora, the Torah disease, which is called Tzorat, which is loosely translated as leprosy. And that this is caused by it's a discoloration of the skin. It's very superficial, and it comes to show that a person is really completed and fixed up, and there's just a little bit of bad on the surface, and that's the procedure in order to recognize this blemish and to fix it. And that's the whole idea of the Mashiach. It says the Mashiach also will be called a Metzora, and that's why he says he will suffer. Mashiach will suffer for our sins. Doesn't mean he'll suffer, he'll take care of our sins. He's suffering because of the fact that there are still sins in the world. And so the whole idea of the Mashiach is that he is going to teach the whole world how to fix themselves up. Because the main thing in Judaism is you have to do it yourself. You have to work on yourself. And that the Rebbe stressed by saying that the month of Iyar is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's the spiritual aspect, purity. And Rachel, that shows on work, that you have to work. You have to do the work. In Judaism, everything depends on your work. I mean, there's also free gifts and things like that, but everything depends on your work. So being saved and all this depends on your work. If you do good, then what is good? The Torah determines what's good. The Torah determines what's good. People in Stalin's communism, they went around killing people. They killed people, and they thought it was really good. They were getting rid of the capitalists or who knows what. Okay, that's why we have the Torah to tell us what really is good and what's not good. And the more that if the person by accident he does or because of his own happens to follows his conscience and does what's good, that's very good. A person gets whatever reward there is in the world to come. He gets rewarded. But the ultimate reward is the more genuine the motivation, the bigger the reward. If that's what you're interested in, is rewards. But the main thing here, it says Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Rachel. Rachel is Rachel. That's the aspect of work in this world, not caring about what happens afterwards. And that's what it means. It says Tiferes Lola Adam. Tiferes is the Torah. The more things are done according to the Torah, and because the Torah says, is the more accurate and truthful is what the person does. Of course, we all know that it's very possible to go according to the Torah, use the Torah, and to twist the Torah. That's also possible. So that's why it's very necessary to have the rabbis, the teachings of the rabbis. So it says, and that's the idea why we have to have the Mashiach. The Mashiach is going to come and teach everyone. He's going to be a teacher. He's going to be a teacher, and he's also going to be a king. A teacher means that he's going to put it inside of us, that we're going to understand. It's going to be ours, doing good and doing bad. But he's going to be a king because he's going to force everyone, or more accurately, he's going to bring everyone to force themselves. People will ignore their own feelings, and they will do what the Creator wants because they believe that's what the Creator wants. That's what it means, a king. A king is a person that inspires people to do things against what they feel. And a teacher is a person that teaches everyone to feel the right things. But there's some feeling God, right? If it depends on God, that's the whole thing of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Your feelings. If a person feels God, he feels what's right. That's already getting to the truth. But if he feels himself, and sometimes a very thin line, like we talked about before, if a person, when he's serving God, he's thinking about going to heaven, that's selfish. There's whole huge religions. In fact, as far as I know, all the religions are based on going to heaven. And Judaism says there's such a thing as heaven, but that's just small change. The main thing is in this world. That's Rachel, in this world. Tiferet means revealing godliness here in this world. So he says that's the whole idea of his Galus Malchus, revealing the kingship of God in this world. To reveal the king. What does it mean, the kingship of God? We Jewish people are supposed to say 100 blessings every day. And the blessing is, we say, blessed are you, God, King of the universe. What does King of the universe mean? King of the universe means that God creates everything all the time. He's creating everything. The aspect of God's kingship is God's creative force. Sometimes it's called God's mouth. Right? In the Bible, we say, God said, let there be light. He said, Vayomer, he said. That's called God's kingship, is also synonymous with God's mouth. Malchut peh, it says. The kingship is God's mouth. And Torah Shabbal peh. And that's the oral Torah. That's the inside of God's mouth, of God speaking, to reveal the kingship of God. The kingship of God means that God creates the world, and that God gave the Torah, and that God explained the Torah, the oral Torah. He explained the Torah. The rabbis, in order to reveal this to everybody, the kingship of God. Now, on the other hand, kingship of God is the Torah, like we said, but it's also, kingship means, as there is in the Torah, sometimes you have to do things that are against what you want. And that's what's going to fix up the sin of the tree of knowledge. Feeling. People will go against their feelings. People will go against their feelings. The Rebbe said a very interesting thing. The Rebbe said that if, there's what's called the 7 Noahide commandments. 7 Noahide commandments, those are the negative aspects of it, the 7 Noahide commandments. There's also a lot of positive commandments. It's not the same thing as the commandments of the Jewish people, but there's also the commandments. And the Rebbe said that they are, in short, don't kill, don't steal, don't blaspheme, don't worship anything except for the Creator, don't eat a limb from a living animal, don't have sexual crimes, whatever it is called, licentiousness, taking somebody else's wife, the sexual connection with an animal, with the homosexuality. These things wreck the world. And have courts of justice, establish courts of justice to enforce those previous. Says the Rebbe said, if that would have been taught before World War II, it could have been that all of World War II would have been avoided. Now, I mean, it's a nice thing to say, but if you've ever seen videos, the videos of the Nuremberg rallies, may his name be blood and may burn in hell a million years, Hitler. The Nuremberg rallies, there were like, I don't know, close to 1 million people sometimes. And you look, they fan the crowd. There's a famous movie called, what is it, the Victory of the Will or something like that. It was about the greatness of the Nazi movement, and you look at the people, they fan them, and you see that in their eyes is this pure bliss and devotion to this evil man that's standing in front of the world, standing in front of them and telling them that we must make war, we have to be a big jerk. Now, you want to really tell me that somebody would teach them 7 Noahide commandments, that they wouldn't have this devotion and this craziness, and I mean, these feelings that were just filled with bliss and self-sacrifice, right? They went out and they killed tens of millions of people, and they themselves got killed, right? and you want to tell me somebody comes with this idea of 7 Noahide commandments is going to stop them? How is it going to stop them? So it says, well, the Melech HaMashiach is going to stop them. How is he going to stop them? Because he's going to be a king, and he's going to convince everybody. How he's going to do it, I don't know. But he's going to convince everybody that God exists. He's going to convince everybody that God is creating them. So you go to a Nazi in the rally and you say, God is creating you. He said, what are you talking about? God is creating you. Do you feel this? I don't feel nothing. I feel that I'm part of the party and we're going to go and we're going to conquer the world. That's what I feel. He says, well, your feeling is a mistake. You can't go according to your feeling. You can't go according to your feelings. You don't feel God, that's a mistake. You do feel yourself, also a mistake. You feel egotism, that came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't trust your own feelings. If this idea comes to everybody in the world, God is really creating me. I don't feel it. I do feel that I'm a big egotist and I want pleasure and I want victory and all this, and I can't trust my own feelings. That's called a king. A king means you go against your own feelings. It says that, interestingly enough, that the Melech Mashiach, that all of the religions in the world, they'll all drop their religions. You won't have to force anybody, they'll all drop their religion. They say, wow, the only reason we chose this is because we didn't feel what God is. And that's why we chose these religions. Now we're seeing that not feeling God that's natural. We have to not pay attention to our own feelings. The fact is that we don't feel the truth. We don't feel the truth. What we do feel is a lie. That's what happened from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. All of a sudden, people felt lies and they liked it and they thought that's me. And so that's what it means. We have to reveal the kingship of God in the world. Who's going to do this? The Mashiach. Mashiach is going to be the one that will teach everyone, but he's also going to be a king. How is he going to convince everybody that there's going to be big miracles? I mean, we have to leave something up to God. In the end, God is he does everything when it really comes down to it. The reason we have the ability to make free choice is because God gave us that ability. Right? He's creating us. He's creating everything. This is going to be revealed in the future. God really wants us to make the right choices, and part of making the right choices means to ignore our selfishness. If you look at the 9th chapter of the Tanya, he also explains it. There are many ways to reveal the kingship of God. Malchut, kingship as it is in the 7 midos, emotions. This week, by the way, was Sfirat Omer, counting the Omer. This is the week of Tiferet. This is the week we count the aspect of Tiferet. Tiferet means beauty and balance. He says, so in Tiferet itself, there's Chesed of Tiferet and Gevura and Tiferet and Netzach and Od. And then there's Malchut of Tiferet, the kingship of Tiferet. He says there's a lot of ways to reveal God's Malchut, God's kingship. There's kingship as it is in a kind king, Malchut Gevura, a severe king, strong king. Malchut Shebetiferet, a beautiful king, balanced, beautiful. Netzach, victorious. Hod means surrender. Malchut Shebiyasod, that he's connected to the people. Malchut Sheba Malchut, that he's just pure kingship. Right? He rules all the time. Those are the different aspects of the king. According to what it said before. Remember we said, Ezu derech yesharish yibor adam. That's in Pirkei Avot, the beginning of the 2nd chapter of the Ethics of the Fathers. Rabbeinu HaKodesh, that it says in the Gemara that he could be Mashiach. He had the qualifications. He suffered. It was one of them. He knew the whole Torah. He tried to convince all the Jews to strengthen the Torah. Rebbe could have been Mashiach. He said you have to pick the straight way. What is the straight way? We said before, the straight way, that's the Torah. That's the Torah. The straight way is the Torah. Litkalot ubiyat Mashiach. The straight way to reveal the Mashiach is Tiferet. Tiferet lo adam. That's what he said. Beauty. And we said beauty, that's the Torah. And that's what it means. That's the whole idea of Malchut Shebetiferet. That the kingship of beauty, of the king expresses things in a beautiful way. And we said before, what is the beauty? Is the Torah. The main thing in the Mashiach is going to be Torah. Explaining the laws of the Torah, the godliness of the Torah, the commandments of the Torah. The Od ve'ikr, and mainly, she'ein tzarech lahamtin, we don't have to wait for all of the other lahamshich hashabatot shel Sfirat Omer. We don't have to wait for all the other weeks of Sfirat Omer, because this is the Malchut of Tiferet, the kingship in a beautiful way. This Nimshachim is revealed all of the details of kingship afterwards. What is Tiferet? Tiferet means beauty. Beauty means inclusion of all different aspects. If you see a picture that's beautiful, Usually beautiful means that it has a lot of colors in it. If it's just one color, usually it's not beautiful. Right? Beautiful means there's a lot of aspects come in harmony one to the other. So that's the idea of the kingship, beautiful kingship. Malchut of Tiferet means that it contains all of the other aspects in it. Malchut of Netzach, and the victory of the king. Malchut of Hod means the beauty of the king. Oh, he says Hod means beauty. So if so, we'll say Tiferet sometimes is beauty, but it's also balance. Balance. Melech biyofio techazena inechet says the king is beauty of the king. Your eyes will see. Malchut of Yesod means the strength, strengthening the kingship in the way of Yesod, V'nesach, very found. It'll be very found. I say very firm. His kingship. Malchut sheba Malchut, the kingship of the kingship. You see, like Moses, it says by Yibi Yeshua and Melech that Moses was called the king, and the King David was called the king. But they always had enemies. And their enemies were they always had to fight and battle and argue against their enemies all the time. And this was through the whole history of Jewish people, right? The whole history of Jewish people. There's always been, strange religions and strange philosophies and weird, the breakaway groups that have tried to destroy the kingship of God, the Torah. But the idea of the Mashiach is going to make the kingship of God very firm. Like it says, Malchutcha Malchut Kolamim, your kingship, God, is the kingship of all worlds. It's in Psalm 145. Malchutcha, your kingship. Namely, what is your kingship? The Malchut of Ein Sof, which is before what's called the Tzimtzum, before God made this contraction in order to create the world, concealed himself, so to speak. This is connected now a little bit of Kabbalistic stuff. This is connected with the crown and the inside of the crown of the king. It says Keter Elyon Keter Malchut, the upper crown. This is the crown of the king. These are all Kabbalistic levels, but essentially it's coming to reveal the kingship and the rulership and the beauty and the balance of God in this world. It's drawn down, like it says, Malchut Kol Amim, into all of the worlds. There's a difference between melech and a memshal. In Hebrew, it's translated, well, I don't know, at least Chassidut brings out, that a melech, the people want the king. Even though the king tells them to do things that are against their will, but they realize that the king is right. They realize that the king is right. And that what they want and what they think is not, that's why they want the king, because they know that going according to their own feelings, it just doesn't succeed. So that's why they need the king. But on the other hand, there's also what's called a memshal, a dictator. A dictator is a person that rules over the country against their will, against the people's will, forces them. We see that's why the Stalin, this was called a dictator, even though the people loved him. Oh, the picture on the wall. But he killed like 50 million people. Anybody who disagreed with him, or he thought disagreed with him, or he thought was going to disagree with him, or he thought that maybe he was going to convince somebody else to disagree with him, in another 10 years he would kill. He killed everybody. He just killed without discretion. And then his soldiers they were strengthening the gun. That's called a memshal. That's called a dictator. He rules against the will. No, God is the Mashiach is going to be a melech, a king. The people are going to want him to rule. Everyone accepted willfully your rulership over them. Okay, so we said before, what is the straight way to reveal? So far, the Rebbe said that there are two ways that we can, these are all very nice ideas, but the two ways that we can actually facilitate and speed up the revelation of Mashiach in this world. And that is the Torah and by action. The Torah is called the Derech Yeshara, the straight way, that Rebbe said, what is the straight way that Adam should do? Adam is the perfection of man. Nevertheless, he has to do something more to bring Mashiach, and that is Derech Yeshara. That's by means of the Torah. And we said by means of Rachel, that Rachel is the idea of action in the world, to actually do good deeds, say good things, So let's explain this thing of the straight way, derech yeshara, to reveal the Mashiach by means of Malchut of Tiferet, by means of the kingship of balance, inclusion. What do we, as Meister of Paul, what are we actually supposed to do? Since the Mashiach Tzidkenu, Omed Lavo Teicha Miyad, immediately he's going to come, immediately. It's a very interesting thing. According to Judaism, most opinions, it's in the Talmud also, that the holy temple, the third temple, is finished and it's ready. There's a Gemara in Sukkot. It brings Sukkah, brings it up. It's also in Kabbalah and in the Zohar and other places that the third temple, Mikdash Hashem Konenu Yodecha, the third temple is already built. It's already ready, and it just has to be revealed. It just has to, it's there. It just has to be. It's hidden. It has to be. Where is it hidden? Where is this thing hidden? Was that I mean, I'm not an architect or anything, but I imagine the third temple, it must weigh, I don't know, 300 million tons. I don't. I mean, it's a big building. Right? How much the Empire State Building build? This must be like half, a quarter. How much does it weigh? So this is a huge building that weighs millions and millions and millions of tons, and it's there. It's actually there, and we just totally don't see it. Because it's just there, ready to be revealed. The same thing, Mashiach. Says the Rebbe, the Mashiach is there, ready to be immediately going to come. Immediately. Of Ladayin Lo Bo B'Pol. He didn't come actually. In other words, the Mashiach did not yet. Here we see what the situation of the world, terrible. Therefore, we have to do some sort of an effort. Like the Tzorat is at the end of his garments, on the outside of the garments. What do we have to do? Something special in order to bring the Mashiach. It has to be in action. Not we're talking about that the Mashiach is going to do what he's going to do. He'll do his things. But we have to do something. That's the whole essence of Mashiach, is that he's going to make everyone dynamic, happy. It all depends on us. He's going to activate everybody. He's going to activate the potential, the good potential in every single human being. Not only in every single human being, in the whole world. But it's more noticeable in human beings. Al Yadei, by means of, what do we have? Malchut Shebi Tiferet. That's what we say. This aspect of Malchut Shebi Tiferet. This week is Tiferet, is this idea of splendor or balance, and the kingship. What do we say? Kingship, like we said before, the idea of the Mashiach, which the king the Mashiach will be a king. How it is in the Torah. The Torah is Tiferet. The Torah is this idea of beauty and balance and splendor, inclusion. In other words, by means of the Torah, and this is the whole thing of the Mashiach. We said, what do we say? Mashiach is going to be a teacher, and also he's going to be a king. By means of the Torah, that's the aspect of the Mashiach, that he's a teacher. By means of learning in the Torah things about Mashiach, Nimshachim and Mizkalim or Orot Elyonim, there's drawn down these high upper revelations of the future redemption, which the future redemption won't be the future, it'll be now. This future redemption, that's the idea of the Mashiach. That's the second thing of the Mashiach. He's not just a teacher, he's a king. And this will be drawn by learning Torah and learning especially in the Torah about Mashiach. That's what we're doing now. By means of this, it brings down these things into an inside way. It becomes part of our personality. Ubapashtos, and simply, Tiferet means learning Torah. And Malchut of Tiferet means learning Torah about the Mashiach. Ube'inyani, and matters of the future redemption that were explained in many, many places. Okay, so you have to learn things about Mashiach. So there's not really too much about Mashiach in the Torah, right? Wrong. Everything in the Torah is talking about Mashiach, everything. And here we have an example. This Torah portion is talking about a disease, a spiritual Torah disease that doesn't even exist anymore. It's a thing that only existed in the time of the temple. It's called Sorat, and it was a very bizarre appearance, right? A person would say negative things about people, and all of a sudden he would see this sort of weird blemish on his arm or his leg or wherever it was, his body. And he would go, and there was all these laws, if the hairs come first, and there has to be the discoloration, and the hair comes afterwards, like we learned in the Mimer in Likkutei Torah. And then all these details, it's not even relevant now. It's not attached to anything that's really relevant. For sure, it's not talking about Mashiach, right? Says the Rebbe, wrong. Here, look, we've been talking for days already about how this idea of Tzorat, this strange disease that doesn't even exist anymore, how this is so intricately and intimately intertwined with the whole idea of the Mashiach. The Mashiach he himself will be called a Matzora, he'll be called a leper, and how he is suffering, and because all Jewish people are suffering, and there's only a little bit of bad, and it's only on the surface, and especially in the Torah Shebechtav, and especially things that are really talking about the Mashiach. The prophets, the Rambam says that all of the books are filled with the coming of Mashiach. And also B'Torah Shebal Peh, and the Talmud, and Sanhedrin, and all the places in the end of the Sota that are speaking explicitly about Mashiach, and especially in the inside of the Torah. That's what we're talking about, the Pnimius of Torah, and Chassidut. Chassidut takes everything in the Torah and connects it to the Mashiach. Beginning with the book, the Zohar. Chassidut, what about, there's the inside the Torah, it says the Zohar. It says that Elijah the prophet said to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, B'hai chibur dalach, the Sefer Zohar. It says, with this book that you're making, the book the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai wrote it when he was in the cave, hiding away from the Romans. He was in this cave for 13 years. The Rebbe in the Tanya says he could have written the Torah in the Zohar in just a few months. But he said, with this book, the Zohar, and the ideas that are in the Zohar, Yivkun Bey, the Jewish people will go out with it, mean Galuta, from the exile, Barachamim, and mercy. Right? And the Chassidut explains the ideas of the Zohar so that they're practical. But Befran, and especially in Torah, the Chassidut, the by means of Hafatzamayna Techachutza, Atimar Zamalcha Mashiach. This is the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov. That the Baal Shem Tov, he had a meeting with the Mashiach. He says his soul went up to the chamber of the Mashiach, and he asked the Mashiach the same question that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi asked like 1,400 years earlier. When are you going to come? And the Mashiach said, when your teachings are spread out, it's a sentence in Proverbs. When your well springs, your deep teachings are spread out into the whole world. The Torah Rabbeinu Nisienu, in other words, the teachings of the Rebbes of Chabad, and that's the whole design, is just to bring Mashiach, and especially in the Torah of the Nasi Darenu, of the leader of our generation, which is the previous the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said a lot of times that there was no previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe, he's the Rebbe, and that the Rebbe now, our Rebbe, he's just a continuation. This is a picture of the previous Rebbe. Here we go. See a picture? We had this before. We'll do it again. Let's do it again. Beautiful, beautiful man. Beautiful picture. Here we have a picture of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak. He was the father-in-law of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said many, many times that he was the Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach. And the Rebbe himself, picture of the Rebbe, he said about himself that he is just a continuation of an extension of the previous Rebbe. He would always call the Rebbe Deshver. So he said, especially by learning the teachings of the previous Rebbe, which in that the Rebbe included himself as well. There we go. Especially by learning the Torah, yes. Mashiach v'Geula, Torah Toshel Nasi D'Reinu. This is like a preparation of learning really the teachings of the Mashiach. It says by Mashiach he's going to bring a new Torah for me. What does it mean, new Torah? The inside of the Torah, the Penimah, the secrets of the Torah. That's as they are expressed in the Zohar, as expressed in Chassidut, that he'll teach, that it says the Mashiach will teach all of the whole world, in fact, of the Jewish people, the inside of the Torah, the reasons for the laws of the Torah, the knowing and feeling God, not just that God is creating you, but why God is creating you, how much God loves each and every human being in the world, and how we can express our gratitude to him by bringing out our potential. Like it says, know the God of your fathers. Like the Rambam says, Shabbat Zman, that the Jewish people will be great, wise men. They'll know secret things, and they'll grasp the knowledge of God. It says in the days of the Mashiach, people will only be interested in knowing God, the whole world. And so, if so, how are we going to bring them faster? Says the Rebbe, by learning Torah in general, by doing good deeds, but especially by learning Torah that is connected to the Mashiach and the future redemption. That's Malchut Shebetiferet. This is the straight way to bring the revelation of the Mashiach and the redemption, the Geula. Like we said, what is the redemption? That the good potential in every human being and everything in the world will be revealed. The godliness in everything will be revealed actually. So the Rebbe says, I'm coming for Poel. I'm coming to teach what you should do. Here it is, final summary of the whole thing. What are we supposed to do? Vadai, certainly everyone will arouse and advertise every place that they can. What are we supposed to advertise? The following message. Today, in order to bring about the revelation and the arrival of the Mashiach immediately to each and every Jew, men, whether those who sit and learn Torah, whether people that are working, and also the women, and also the children, each and every person according to his ability. What do we have to do? Add on learning Torah. Now, this whole thing depends on the Jews. This whole thing depends on the Jews. The Jews are going to fix up the world. The non-Jews are the highest aspect of the world. The Jews are the lowest aspect of God, the Creator. And the non-Jews, they're the highest aspect of the creation. Right? They're the crown of the creation, if you want to call it. And the Jewish people, they are the mouth of God. They are here in order to bring to the world, to teach the world what God really is. God is not to be found in the religions, even though that's, religions are not, it's much better than being an atheist. There's no doubt about it. Much better than thinking that you're God, but that there is no such thing. Religions cannot get off the track. Yes, it's 100%. Judaism can also get off the track. But the fact of the matter is that God is creating everyone, and people will start just worshiping their Creator. God is infinitely close. That's what it means. But the Jews have to know this first. They have to be an example. They have to be the example that there's a Creator that is really creating us, even though we don't feel it and we don't know it. And that we should follow this Creator and ignore our own feelings sometimes. Right? Sometimes if our feelings contradict. But you should understand, that's the whole idea of loving God. Loving God. Loving God means you feel God. But that ideally, that means you don't think about yourself. But in any case, the Mashiach will bring about true world peace, world, activating the world to do good. And how do we do it? By learning Torah and ideas of the Mashiach. How good it will be that if this learning will be with a lot of people together, 10 people. Because in addition to the fact that 10 people that sit and they learn Torah, that the Shekhinah rests among them, there's also another thing, that when you learn ideas of the Mashiach, about Mashiach and about what's going to be in the future redemption, and you learn it with a group of people, especially if it's 10, now here the Rebbe is speaking to Jews. Then there's more happiness, there's interaction, there's arguments, there's talking, that by means of this, there comes a greater desire and how do you say apprehension, that's the word, I don't know, apprehensive, looking forward to the arousal of Mashiach. And even more, like I said, the Rambam, which is a very cold law book, it's huge, 14 volumes of all of the laws of the Torah, that he says that anyone who doesn't believe in the Mashiach, and he gives all the criterion what Mashiach are. He says anyone who doesn't believe in the Mashiach and wait for his arrival and expect his arrival He's denying the whole entire Torah. So he says very strange language. He denies the whole Torah. So everyone should be desiring Mashiach will come. And why not? I mean, even the non-Jews, there was going to be a good world. All the things that all these, communism and things promised, it's going to really be. There's going to be the equality and liberty. But and even more that a person should do. So here we said, number one, learn Torah, and especially learn Torah that's talking about Mashiach and the redemption. And perhaps the main thing is to add in doing the commandments. And the commandments should be done with, with special care and special beauty, and especially the charity, giving charity. The charity, it says, that's what makes the future redemption come close. And it'll be proper and worthwhile to add charity with adding Torah, and especially Torah in matters of the Mashiach and the Geula. And by means of this, it'll be, so Safat Tzedakah, adding charity will be with the intention to make the redemption come closer. And intention is very important in Judaism. It's like the soul to a body. Even since the kavanah, the more you understand what you're doing when you do a commandment. So it says if the commandment is done not only just to do what God wants, but also to reveal the essence of God in the world. Since this intention on its own is a part of learning Torah in the redemption, like the rabbis say, Geula tzedakah, you're giving charity when you learn Torah. It's his greatest charity because it makes the redemption come close. Yehi ratzon, may it be God's will. Yehi ratzon, may it be God's will. Sheba'achlata, that if we make resolutions and decisions, the kol anal, and everything we said above, namely to think about Mashiach, to desire the coming of Mashiach. Like it says, Rachel, she cries for her children, she cries for the revelation of God that should be in this whole world, that it's not. And by means of doing good deeds, and by means of learning Torah, and by means of learning especially Torah in the matters of Mashiach and the redemption. And what exactly are the qualifications of Mashiach, and what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, and why should we desire Mashiach, and what's going to be so special, and how godliness will be revealed, and to learn more about what exactly is godliness, how God creates the world, and why he creates the world, and how he creates the upper worlds, and to appreciate God more, and to learn, and all this will be revealed. But it all depends on us to speed it up. Yehi ratzon, may it be God's will in everything, to meir that all this will speed up and quicken, and be such a word, quicken, I guess, quicken, and will bring immediately the goal and the purpose, namely the revelation and the arrival of the Mashiach actually immediately. Ubapashtud, and simply that on the day of Shabbat Kodesh, in other words, this coming Shabbat, tomorrow, tonight, like it says, Isha ki Tazria, Parshat Tazria, as this will be Tazria Metzora, like we read in the Torah, according, and also we say how much more so when we read Perki Avot in Mincha. By means of this will be like they say, the birth and the revelation of the Mashiach Tzidkenu. And Mashiach is called the leper in the house of Rebbe. This will be the day that it will be purified. That's how it starts, a leper when he is purified. He's purified. What does it mean? That we will merit to hear the announcement in all of the world and all of the worlds. Hine, behold, Zeh Melech HaMashiach Bo. We'll point with our finger and say, here it is. The Mashiach is here. Who is the Mashiach? Kavod Kadosh, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, the leader of our generation. Why? Because Kitzu V'rananu Shochne Yofer, because they will wake up and rejoice those who sleep in the dirt. In other words, all the dead will rise, and it says the tzaddikim, they will rise up first. So he said the previous Rebbe, he's going to be the Mashiach. He already is. Tzaddikim kamim techiyah mesim. But a lot of times the Rebbe, like I said before, the Rebbe said that the previous Rebbe is still alive, and he's alive in the leader of Chabad today, which that's the Rebbe. In any case, how it's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be, but that it's going to be for sure it's going to be. And the Mashiach is going to be someone who has all the qualifications that the Rambam states, and the Rebbe has all these qualifications. And here we see that the Rebbe said about the previous Rebbe, who everybody agreed he died, right? He didn't die, he died. And he's buried, and everybody goes to his grave. And the Rebbe said, no, he's the Mashiach, because the Mashiach dying does not disqualify the Mashiach. The Rambam says that if the Mashiach is killed because of his sins, if he's killed or he fails, then that, but we see that the previous Rebbe was not killed. That's certainly true. And he certainly did not fail, right? When in the time of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Chabad, the whole idea of bringing all the non-religious Jews to do tshuva, it was a pipe dream. It was insane. The other Jewish leaders, they despised him. Not a nice thing to say. But they said he was cheapening Judaism. And who believed? You go to a non-religious Jew and you ask him to put on tefillin, to be religious, you ask him for money. And the previous Rebbe changed the whole thing around. So no, go and try and ask people. You'll see that they'll do it. And now we see that there's a whole, right? There's thousands, tens of thousands of Jews. Who knows how many? People that don't even know that it was the work of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says and it says that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, even though that he's not alive, but still he can be the Mashiach. The dead will rise up, and the tzaddikim, they'll be the first ones to raise up. And said even more, all of the Rebbes of Chabad, all of the tzaddikim that ever lived in the history of the Jewish people, and Moshe and Aaron will be with them. They'll all wake up. And together with this, all the Jewish people, the young, the old, our sons, our daughters. And like it says in the prophecy, Od akabetz alav nanikbatzav, I will gather all the Jews together. Ashur, from land Assyria and from Mitzrayim. Ashur means all the rich countries and the poor countries. The Rebbe said Ashur is America and Mitzrayim was Russia. That was Judaism, Russia. Me'iyayam from the islands in the sea. Jews will come to the land of Israel. Why? Because they'll be here, the Holy Temple, and Jews will want to do the commandments. The temple will draw everyone to the Holy Temple to do the commandments. The Jews will come, it says, with clouds in the heavens, to our holy land, to Jerusalem, the holy city, to the holy house, the Beit HaMikdash, Beit Tefillah L'Kol Amim. It says the place of prayer for all humanity, to the Holy of Holies. Kamosha Katuv, like it says in the Parsha Shakurim, which we say in Mincha of Shabbat, Zos Yavo Aaron Al Kodesh. Says what we read Achrei Mot Kedoshim. Achrei Mot is talking about what the high priest does in the Holy Temple. The high priest will go on Yom Kippur to the Holy of Holies, and there'll be the third temple. It'll happen in the future. Not only Aaron, but every single Jew will be like the level of a Kohen Gadol. The Malchut Kohanim, the Mamlechet Kohanim, all the Jewish people that are called the kingship of priests, Kohanim Gedolim, high priests. They won't not only on Yom Kippur, but the whole world will be like the Holy of Holies. Every moment, anytime a person wants to go in. In other words, what is the Holy of Holies? The revelation of the Creator in the creation, and even more. What was in the Holy of Holies? The Torah, the 10 Commandments. That was in the Holy of Holies. And the Torah is the boss over the whole entire world, the commandments. And that's the Holy of Holies. And this will be revealed to certain degrees in the whole entire world. And even more, that all this will be done not just in theory and not just in speaking, not just in thought or speech. It'll be below in the physical world, right? Below it says 10 tefachim, so that everyone will be able to give thanks and to bless on the birth and the revelation of the Mashiach. So that's the idea. It all depends on us. Summary: to learn Torah, to do the commandments, especially to learn ideas of Mashiach, to wait for Mashiach, to expect Mashiach, to pray that there will be the future redemption. The whole entire world will be educated properly, and we'll also have a king that the king will tell the whole world to not trust their own feelings, And that'll fix up the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that brought mixed up feelings, people brought egotism into the world, to the degree that there won't be even any more religions. Everyone will worship not some God who's found up in the heavens, but the God is creating me right now, creating each and every one of us, the creator of the world. And then we'll see that the God will truly be called a king, and his kingship will rule over everyone with the coming of the Moshiach immediately now. Pretty beautiful, I think. Let's learn, 1 second, the Yom Yom for today. Why is this not the passage? Why is it not cooperating with me? I want to do something else. Here we go. Here we go. No. No cooperation. Second one. Here we go. Here. All right. The Jewish custom is not to shave or cut a baby's hair until his third birthday. Soon is going to be Lag BaOmer, also the 33rd day of the Omer. And then people go up to Miron to have the first hair cutting is a custom of great importance. First, we wait for it's called the upshirin, a chalakah. The custom is that you wait till the child is 3 years old, and then you cut his hair the first time and make a big party. The main thing of the custom is that education of leaving side locks from the day of the hair cutting and leaving it is the custom to take care that the boy should, from that day, from 3 years old, the child should have what's called a small talit, a talit katan. And he should say the morning blessings, and he should say grace after meals, and he should say the entire Shema Yisrael in the nighttime before he goes to sleep. Very important. That's today. Let's do tomorrow because we will not be. Yes. The Alter Rebbe said from Rabbi Mordechai, who had heard it from the Baal Shem Tov, a soul might come into this world and live 70 or 80 years just in order to do a Jew one material favor and certainly a spiritual one. So as a person, it could be that he'll be brought into this world in order to do a favor for somebody, let's say right in the beginning. But God gives him 80 years to live his life, do commandments and everything. But the main reason he came was to do this one good deed, right? Maybe he did it in the beginning of his life and then the end. But it's worthwhile to bring a soul into the world just in order to do a favor for another Jew. And of course, that means to do a favor for everybody, but the Jewish people are the chosen people. And so to do a favor for a Jew is a special thing. It's called the sons of God. So a person can come into this world, live 80 years just on the merit of one good deed that he's supposed to do sometime in his life. Have a good Shabbat, and God willing, we'll meet again on Sunday, 8:15 in the morning with Hasidut Lakuti Torah. Shalom uvracha with Mashiach now.